Waarschijnlijk weet diezelfde bezoeker van serie B niet dat elke noot van Mozart en van Beethoven van A tot Z gelogen is.
The situation in our country, like in most countries in those years, was that every city had its orchestra. The modern music they played without any passion, because it was obliged to do it, without love. The old music they played in the wrong way.
They were speaking the wrong language. They were using the wrong instruments. They didn't actually, he was saying, didn't know how to cope with this music, and it needed people who were prepared to find out to play it.
Instead of waiting till the Concertgebouw Orchestra or the other orchestras changed their attitude towards old and new music, we did it ourselves.
He called me and said, how is your traverso playing, Ricardo? I said, fine. And he said, would you like to join us with the orchestra? And that is how it began. So that was in 1981. So 33 years ago.
The first time they called me, I wasn't free. So I couldn't come for 2-3 years because they took somebody else. So in a way, I was a bit disappointed. I said, oh shit, I lost my chance. And finally, my chance arrived a few years later, and I'm here already more than 20 years.
This was beginning of 84. I said, well, I'm doing other things now. And I had heard of the name. Later on, I was very ashamed, of course. And then I said, I'm doing other things now. And he said, well, think about it. I'll call you again tomorrow.
And the telephone rang in the middle of that rehearsal, and it was Frans, and he asked for Danny, and spoke with Danny, and Danny came back and then asked me to be in the orchestra, and I thought, no, this is unbelievable. I thought that was really a miracle.
Yeah, it was also for me quite something, because coming to Holland, Frans Bruggen, Gustav Leonhardt, they were sort of the gods of early music, and you know, I was thinking, who am I? I'm nobody, you know, and all of a sudden I'm in this person's house talking to him, and he's asking me to play in the orchestra.
I went with my heart beating very hard to Mr. Bruggen, and I said, I would like to stay in the orchestra. And he said, yes, you may. So I stayed.
Oh, God. I'm waiting 3 years for this call. Okay. Sorry, I don't do anything else. I go on tour.
We started out with our Vivaldis and Bachs, and very carefully Haydn, and even more carefully Mozart. And then we arrived at Beethoven, and for us it was a shock.
Anybody who knows music is attracted to these composers. And the opportunity to explore this particular repertoire, the genius of these composers, with a talented ensemble that you know, can meet regularly and play well together and build a kind of a special group sound and group concept, that would be irresistible to any musician.
What we try to do is to come as close to what the composer had in mind. That's what we are trying to achieve.
1, 2, 1.
Playing the old instrument has made us understand the music so much better.
Nummer 5? Ja. Wel ja. Okay. Ja?
The old instrument is literally more risky to play, and that gives it an extra thrill of being at the edge of what is possible.
When I started to do this in the 80s, there really was no one doing it. So I had to make the instruments too. So I play instruments that I made. A few of us in the orchestra have had that opportunity. instruments are relatively simple. I mean, you need a little bit of skill and you need to take some time to really learn how to do it, but it's not that hard. It just takes perseverance, like most things in life.
My instrument is an original one, yes. It's been made in Paris at around 1820, and so it's almost 200 years old now. I'm very happy to have an instrument like that, because of course it's okay to play on a nice copy, and there are really very fine horn builders these days who make beautiful copies. But for me to possess several instruments that are 200 years old and to work with them, to play with them on a daily basis, I think I can feel the soul of the instrument and the very old soul of these instruments. It's very inspiring.
It's true that an old instrument has a special parfum and fascination. I am violin player and viola player, and I have I don't have copies. I have original instruments.
The instruments between the Baroque time and from about the middle of the 18th century until the 19th century and even further, there was a gradual and constant transformation. So there was a great deal of variety in the setup of instruments. Some had longer necks, shorter necks, many details. So there was no standardization.
We always have discussions on it. You have to use this one. No, because people were using the other one. No, because I read it. So, but we try to be somehow in the period.
Goed zo. Oh, hoi. Koffie?
Frans is not the biggest specialist on gestures as a conductor. He is specialist on mind. And so he can tell you stories that will make you, that will inspire you to play the music like he wants.
He's not a real conductor in the sense that he is sort of the maestro who sort of is controlling the whole orchestra like a lion tamer, something like with the whip going around. No, he knows that things we need to find ways to get ourselves adjusted to the piece. So a lot of things he does not interfere.
Well, basically, he leaves a lot to us. He leaves a lot to us. I mean, the technique of playing, together in the orchestra, he is happy, and he gives us the confidence to do that by ourselves.
So we listen to each other, we play chamber music, we try to be one, and this mixture makes this special sound, which is the treasure of the orchestra, this the most important thing we have.
He understands the music from within. He's always studying the scores, always studying the lives of these people, always finding funny details, interesting details about their lives that he thinks that he finds back in the music, and he's trying to tell us and trying to show this and trying to recreate the music.
The modern performers, modern orchestras, modern conductors do not do their best. They are insufficiently informed. They do not even try or be interested in information. I must say, a lot of conductors, sorry to say it, are only interested in their personal appearance, so to speak.
It's just that France is not tempted by an easy success. Some things, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this because it always works and yeah, people love it, and I don't like it anymore, but okay, let's do it. No, he likes to sort of find the truth, and which we may never get there, but the journey is quite nice.
He never spoke too much. He just gave very small hints, details, but these little things makes a new vision of the piece, of the music.
Just the slightest, dus or that is enough, to know there is something not right.
He has this magical way of saying things, like a picture. He makes a picture, and then the whole orchestra knows we make another. That's the way how we want it to sound.
I remember once we had a joint project with the Age of Enlightenment, and a colleague from London who didn't speak Dutch was sitting next to me. And at a certain moment, we were recording Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and he started talking about the last movement. He started talking about the cosmos, the planets moving. And the Dutch people who understood were sitting there with open mouths at this beautiful vision he had. When he'd finished speaking, my colleague turned to me, who spoke English, and said, well, is that an up bow or a down bow? And to me, this brought it home. There's a practicality in playing music. There's also a vision, and we have to keep the two in balance the whole time.
It's interesting because if he were to give a technical way of doing something, it probably wouldn't have as big an effect. But if he tells a story or makes a metaphor, then people are able to imagine that while they're playing. And it's as if you are able to do sometimes things with your instruments that you wouldn't think you would be able to do.
I remember one which disturbs me till now. But maybe, well, he wants always the sound from behind going. So the people sitting behind should play louder than... And he said once, you have to think about, you go to a bad hotel and the toilet paper is always on the other way around. It comes like this against the wall, it doesn't work. It should be like this from the upper side. But only the bad hotels.
Very big sensitivity from France, a very big openness, and still he could change the sound of any orchestra with just one sentence and one word, one picture, one gesture with the hand. He has an amazing suggestive power and very strong ideas, and still he's the most kind and generous musician, which makes a fantastic mixture to play as a soloist with a conductor.
1, 2, 3, 4. Letzte 4 takten. Kunnen we dat helemaal sul tasto doen? Geen keer? Sul tasto. Nog een keer, hoor eens.
We came to Poland for the first time in '89 to do the B minor Mass. And since then, we have had very many invitations to come back. And there was always this kind, dear friend who said, oh, but you should play Chopin.
Chopin was pointed out to us by Stanisław Leszczyński.
W momencie, kiedy Gardiner, Bruchen, Arnoncourt zaczęli wykonywać ten romantyzm bezpośrednio wywodzący się z klasycyzmu i dochodzili do wykonań w tej stylistyce Brahmsa, no to już nie było argumentów, nie było możliwości, żeby Bruchen miał jakiekolwiek obiekcje i sprzeciwił się, żeby nie spróbować wykonać Chopina.
I must say I was not enthusiastic.
My personal feeling and the feelings around me is like, okay, will this work or will this won't work? Why are we doing this?
And this first moment when we were there in the rehearsal studio and playing Chopin, many of us had never played Chopin because, of course, we play in other orchestras, and it was a revelation.
I think Franz understood quite quickly what was necessary. We're looking at quite often melody lines from the piano and a colouring with the orchestra of what the piano is doing. And Franz has a very fine feeling of orchestral colour and form and structure, so he could bring that to the vision that the soloist had.
glorious moments was, I don't know if you know this, but we were supposed to perform, I think 2 or 3 years ago, with Christian Bezuidenhout, who is a real for the pianist. He was not playing Chopin. He was going to play, I don't know, Beethoven with us, I think, concerto. And then when I arrived at the airport, I had to inform the institute that Christian just told me that he was in hospital in London, that he was very sick, and that he wasn't sure if he was able to come. So Frans and I were thinking, what do we do? Thrilled. Our rehearsal with Marichal Pires. Wow, this legend. And she played the piano and said, oh, it's actually quite easy. Oh, okay, fine. And at that moment, Martha Argerich came into the rehearsing room.
Yes. Hello. How are you? Fine. And you?
Okay, I don't know.
Martha Argerich.
And she said, oh, what is this? I thought that you invited me. And then, of course, we had to say, sorry, but this is me to blame. I did ask someone else because I had the impression that you didn't want to do it.
It's first time I play this piano.
Mais exactement, comme quoi c'est pas l'instrument.
Oh,
it's very nice.
No,
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen,
Next August, we will prepare a complete piano concerto, so Beethoven share between both of you, okay?
But complete pianos you one can play here?
It's a five piano concertos. No?
C'est ici, Martha.
She plays number 4 very well, and I don't play...
First?
The third I play very bad,
second.
so I don't want. And
you play first very bad?
Yeah, but the fifth I don't play. You need... I played twice in my life.
Which
I have
one?
to realize. Number 5.
Number 5,
Twice
yes.
I played in my life, but not very. I think not very well because I learned it. It was a very long time ago. I was those times when I used to learn in 3 weeks something, you know, and then you know what I mean. And then I forgot.
This
The fa.
This fa sounds a little bit metallic on that piano.
Yeah.
So take care, don't make too much sforzato.
Yeah. It is not only the institute that gave us Chopin, it's also they gave us all these fantastic soloists. over the last 10 years, we have played with all kinds of musicians we had never met before. Famous ones, unknown ones, people from Vietnam, but also from Argentina, from everywhere in the world. And that was not because of us, it was all the merit of the Institute who attracted those people and confronted them with us.
Precies op letter E.
Oké. Ja, maar dan moeten we een beetje sneller. Dan help je.
Dan help ik. Ja, zeker. Same place. 100. Please. 100. Nu.
She plays it with a transparency, with a clarity that you really hear the structure and the architecture of the composition. Completely new. So everyone is excited. We hear the piece again with fresh ears.
There's a lot of rubato, of movement within the soloist line, and that's quite hard to follow. But I think as an orchestra, we're able to communicate very quickly with each other and communicate quickly with France. And usually we find a common ground quite fast with a new soloist.
I mean, which piece we start?
About in 20 minutes.
Which one? Welke stuk?
You decide.
You
decide.
Long story.
Ik zei het ook al. Het is aan jou. Kijk maar.
What is your preference?
DJ staat op DI.
Dina, what do you prefer? I tell France.
I told already, Brahms concert.
The Brahms concerto? Okay, fine. Then you give us 12 minutes more. No, but honestly, you like to start with the second or number opus 2 or opus 13?
No, we are doing now opus 2, Don Giovanni. 13, it's fantasy on the Polish stemmen. What we play on 25th.
Don't try to know more from about Chopin than Dina. Eh?
It's enough.
Probably people in Poland, when they hear one of the concertos, which of course they know so well, played by our orchestra, they're a little bit shocked. Tempi, taking time in certain places, and I think that's maybe surprising to them, but there is this sense of a rhetorical sense that Chopin definitely has in his music, and I think it's nicer when it's not played straight through, that there's a little bit of a feeling of breathing.
Very good tip of Leshinsky. Even when, of course, in what we play by Chopin for orchestra is accompanying the piano, of course. So it's not a symphonic task for us. Well, it's such a nice encore. It's a kind of... It's Die Libelle. It's a description of a beautiful insect which turns around. It makes a very good encore.
What I find fascinating about him is the sound that he gets from the orchestra, and it intrigues me in general about conductors. How does one conductor achieve a completely different sound than another conductor with the same orchestra, without necessarily ever speaking about sound? And there's something about his gestures, his presence, maybe his breathing. I think it might be about breathing, but that creates some very special sound, so that I've had the experience of walking into the room, when I was late for rehearsal or something, and thinking, what an extraordinary sound the orchestra makes. And then I've seen him conduct other orchestras and heard the result, and somehow that same very special, magical sound seems to appear. That's something I don't understand, and I don't know that anybody understands that, but that's to do with his particular kind of presence.
Well, France always had a conception of music that was to do with air and airflow. And I remember, particularly in the early days of the orchestra, he would constantly use of air as a reference to the string players. Constantly, always trying to get them to play as if they were playing on air.
You very often, also on our recordings, you hear it. It's like blowing. He's a real wind player, and that's also his attitude towards the orchestra. Inspiration, expiration.
And I've often wondered since whether this is a key reason why this orchestra has a sound which is quite different to other orchestras. We were schooled, the whole orchestra, in this idea of phrasing from breathing.
I breathe and the orchestra breathes with me. Oh yeah, it helps. Yeah, sure.
Of course, when he speaks to his orchestra, he can count on a more immediate understanding. But he achieves his ideas. He achieved his ideas with many modern orchestras, and he made them also sound very different from what they were used to. And he worked regularly, for example, with the Orchestra de Paris. He had there some position there. I played with him Schumann concerto there, and it sounded completely different than if they would play with another conductor.
The orchestra is quite successful all over the world since 4 decades. It's quite successful. And I think that our luck is based on 3 elements. First of all, it's the repertoire. Then it's France. And the third is the structure, the way we work. It's very easy. It's in a way a kind of communist approach. We all earn the same. I pay all invoices, and the rest is divided in equal parts. So every musician in France gets the same amount of money.
Well, we have a great formula. So we are sort of a group of friends, and we all respect each other, and we don't and we come together as a sort of reunion all the time, and then we our ways part, and we go to our lives in different countries, in different cities, with different orchestras or different musical groups. Don't have the time to get irritated by each other so quickly, because we're only together for a week or 10 days and then we part our way. So it's easy to get the good spirit up. And we always want more. We want more of those tours because they're so lovely and we are so good taken care of. And this inspiring music by an inspiring conductor. But everybody holds their breath, of course, with France. But we hope that maybe he's immortal.
The feeling of warmth that we all have together is something we only experience here with this orchestra.
So we grow old together, and also the sound is I think it's still improving, like a very old wine. It's getting better. It's getting better because we always get together, just with this kind of family, one would say.
The whole orchestra and me, we are very close friends. So we are really very close friends. It's only happiness. I think that's part of the secret. We are not colleagues, we are friends.
This strange combination of not talking too much, being generous, but also sometimes a bit mysterious. We all love the man.
3 words are difficult to find, positive or negative.
You have difficult questions, my God.
Maestro, magician, musician.
I would say shy, magical, and stubborn.
Very demanding on himself.
An inquiring mind. A man that wanted to see change.
As a musician, I guess I admire his concentration. It's one of the most important things.
Sound and timing, just 2 words.
And then I miss 1 word, huh?
Patient.
Passionate about music.
I would say genius.
Yeah, sorry, it's very banal, but it's a genius.
Genius.
It's undescribable.
No limits.
I never play 1 more note on the recorder. Not 1 note. I don't know why. It's... I don't like to look at the past anyway. I only look forward.